All right, welcome back. Welcome back. I hope that you all had the opportunity to grab some fresh air during our break. And now, in our next segment, I am so excited. And some people have already pulled me aside and said, is that the author? Did she write that? Yes, this is our author. Our author is here. But before we bring on our author, Ibi, I am first going to introduce somebody who I am really excited about all the work that she's done, not only for AAPF, but also in other spaces. Kayla Philo is an independent journalist based in Washington, D.C., and a research and writing fellow for the African American Policy Forum. Previously, she's worked as an investigative reporter for Talking Points Memo, the Government and Political Institutions reporter for Grid News, the Justice Department correspondent for Courthouse News Service, and an editorial fellow on the Politics and Ideas desk at The Atlantic. Really? Oh, wow, you did a lot at the age of 16. Her writing has been published in Talking Points Memo, Politico, The Atlantic, The New Republic, Washington Monthly, Washingtonian Magazine, Vice News, The Appeal, Jewish Currents, The Baffler, The Fader, and more. She's been chosen for the 2023 class of the Maynard Institute for Journalism Education's fellowship program on the investigative storytellers track. Previously, she took part in the Paraplus Collective's inaugural fellowship class where she was mentored by New Yorker staff writer Alexis Akiowo. Very good. Welcome, Kayla. Thank you, Kayla. And at this time now, I'm going to have Dina Wright Joseph introduce our guest author.
Hello, I'm back. How y'all doing? Wonderful to see you all again. Your faces are so bright and amazing. This is perfect. This is my favorite time of the day because I get to introduce someone who is really a great friend, you know, an amazing human being, a great mother. And I have to stay on script because I'll go off all day about her. But author Ibi Zoboi is a New York Times best-selling author for her book American Street, a National Book Award finalist for Pride, a contemporary remix of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. She also wrote My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich, her middle grade debut. And she's also the co-author of the Walter Award and LA Times Book Prize winning Punching the Air with prison reform activist Dr. Yusef Salaam of the Exonerated Five. Y'all have heard of the Central Park Five? Yes, the Exonerated Five. Dr. Yusef Salaam and she co-wrote their book, Punching the Air, which was also shortlisted for the UK's Yoto Carnegie Medal. Ibi is the editor of Black Enough, Stories of Being Young and Black in America. Her debut picture book, The People Remember, received a Coretta Scott King Book Honor Award. Her most recent books are Star Child, a biographical constellation of Octavia Estelle Butler, and Okoye to the People, a Black Panther novel for Marvel. So, yes. So our star today, who's going to be moderated by our star today, is Miss Ibi Zoboi. Please welcome Miss Ibi Zoboi.
Thank you so much for. Hello, testing. Got it. While you're sitting down. Yep. Thank you so much, Ibi, for coming this afternoon and joining us, and thank you all for attending our Youth Leadership Summit. My name is Kayla Philo, as y'all have heard, and I will be chatting with Miss Ibi today. And you're gonna get some cards from Ariana to write questions down. Just wanna really encourage y'all to, take advantage of this opportunity to talk to a New York Times bestselling author. Because we'll have the question and answer portion after I chat with her a little bit. So yes, thank you for coming, Ibi. I just have a few questions for you. So your books, American Street and Black Enough, they've been banned from K through 12 schools across the country alongside works by authors like Alice Walker and Ta-Nehisi Coates. So I was wondering what kind of reception you've received from fans, critics, or just contemporaries since your work's been censored.
First of all, hello everybody. What a wonderful room to be in. I have two daughters who are 21 and 19, and I think this is their vibe. They would fit in perfectly with this and have all the questions and make all the comments. And I wanted to say I started out wanting to be an investigative reporter, which is how I became a novelist. I would have loved that side of things too. So my book's being challenged and banned. There are different levels to this book banning conversation, and it's important to know what they are. There are sometimes challenges is when school board members, and it doesn't have to be an entire school board, or a parent in a community raises a question, raises some things, problematic things in a book. It could be one parent, two parents, three parents. And it can be taken off the curriculum if it's on the curriculum. If in high school classrooms, you're probably reading it for English class. It could be taken off the school library, or it could be taken off the district library in the entire district. So there are so many levels. I know that my book, American Street, have been taken off some curricula. I hear about it if someone tells me about it, and PEN America does a good job of tracking all of this. The only way that I know is if my book sales go down. And I've been hit. It does affect my pockets. The thing about young adult books or children's books is that I depend on school districts buying my books, and I depend on schools and teachers teaching my books. If you're in high school right now, if you were, of course you remember being a teenager, not a lot of our communities have bookstores where we're going out to buy a book every week. So because I'm writing about Black children and having certain experiences, I do write for the school, library, and classroom market. I don't write, some books are more commercial than others, like Pride is more commercial. Romance is commercial, fantasy is commercial, but coming of age stories about Black girls, I do want schools to teach my books. When teachers and school librarians decide that they're not gonna keep the books because of parents, then it does hurt my pockets and it does hurt my colleagues. It is a myth. It is not true that when your book is banned, people go out and buy it, especially not for Black books about Black girls. So I have been able to make a living by being very prolific. I have to always be switching it up, being a chameleon, because coming of age stories about Black girls and Black non-binary children do not sell as well as other books. So when they start banning our books, yes, it does hurt our pockets.
I'm sorry to hear that. I obviously hate when any books by Black authors are banned, which happens unfortunately too commonly. But let's get into why that happened. Because you've listed Toni Morrison, Edwidge Danticat, and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie among your personal favorite authors, and you've also studied under Octavia Butler. So it's safe to say that you are conversant with Black feminist thought. So what is it about Black feminist literature that you think riles up the right wing and conservative parents and makes them ban these books in the first place?
I really don't think it's Black feminist literature because I don't think they're that well read. I don't think they're that smart. The people who are banning books are not smart enough to say we're gonna ban this feminist text. It really isn't that complicated. I have seen a video because parents were pushing back. There are parents pushing back on this. There was this man who was reading passages from American Street, and he was picking up, reading passages about, just, how we do. We foul with the mouth, when we're together, we talk in a certain way, and he's reading it. He got the vernacular wrong. He's cursing. My characters are saying things about the kids in the suburbs, the white kids in the suburbs. And out of context, it sounds like, okay, it sounds bad, right? These kids, potty mouth kids in the ghetto. And that's all it is. Then they're like, okay, let's take it off because this parent's got a problem with the F word. It's really that simple. It is not as complicated as somebody reading the entire book, comparing it to bell hooks or other feminist texts and saying, you know what, this is feminist theory, this is critical race theories, we're going to take it off. They might say that, but they did not read it well enough to really apply those theories to the book. So no, I don't think people banning our books are that smart.
I heard that.
You might have some tissue for me, please? I'm sorry. I have some allergies. And you could keep asking questions.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
So let's talk about a Black feminist in your own work. Your recent novel, Nigeria Jones, focuses on the titular character as she discovers her family's secrets and also herself within the context of this intentional Afrocentric community. So it's been compared to work by Jacqueline Woodson and Roxane Gay, and it weaves in intersectional concepts and even mentions Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, executive director. So I was wondering, what kind of lessons about identity and asserting oneself that you hope, Black girls and femmes, our audience today, takes away from a book like Nigeria Jones?
So I put this out here. This isn't in my recent bio, the bio that was just here. Thank you so much. This is my favorite book. I had to work my way to be able to write a book that I really want to write. Mm-hmm. Now, while American Street is banned, I know you have heard of the movie American Fiction that just came out. This is my story. So there are things that happen in this book that I would not have written on my own. I didn't write this book. These are my words. But the violence in this book is not one I would have wanted to write. I worked with some editors who wanted some violence, who wanted some shoot 'em up, bang, bang. And it was a book that I wrote to get through the door. There's so much I can say about that. I wanted to write fantasy. When I was in college, I was querying agents. That's how long I've been in the game. No one wanted to publish a book based on Haitian Vodou mythology. I am Haitian. I was writing at the Haïtien, oui, ça passe chez lui. When there were some fantasy books coming out and I wanted to write middle grade, kind of like Harry Potter, but Haitian Vodou is so vast and so deep. There's so much you can do with it, but no one knew what to do with that back in the early 2000s. And I kept at it and I kept at it and got some rejections to the point where I thought it was something to do with my writing. I thought my writing wasn't good enough, and I ended up getting an MFA, paying for an MFA. In hindsight, it wasn't my writing. It was racism. It was them not knowing thinking that we don't read those types of books. Fast forward to 2016, 2017, all of a sudden African fantasy is a thing. I can honestly say I was ahead of the curve. Not ahead of my time because my peers were also doing the same thing. I was in the spoken word scene and we were writing fantasy poems. We were writing sci-fi poems, just not writing the books. And it's part of our literary tradition to write speculative fiction. It's just the publishing industry wasn't ready for it yet, but a whole 20 years later, they say, oh, now it's selling. We're ready for you now. But before that, I ended up writing this ghetto fiction. It's literary. It's literary, but it is kids in the hood ultimately. But that's not what I started writing. And it's one of those things where let me knock this out and get to my fantasy book. And I really didn't think that it would blow up the way that it did. So you remember in the movie, he's like, I'm gonna write this, and there's a scene where he's like playing out the father and the son, and it's real like, hood drama. There is a scene similar to that. There are several scenes similar to that in the book, but it's literary because I can't, I love good writing. So it ends up getting the National Book Award. And I'm like, how did that happen? And it is one of my best-selling books. So this does not sell as much as my hood drama book. Because there's no violence in here. There's no police brutality talk. This is a girl grappling with her very militant Afrocentric community. And I could say this in this room. Her father is like a Dr. Umar Johnson. And her mother is... So imagine your father is Dr. Umar and your mother is Erykah Badu. And the whole your whole community is like that. So obviously you don't go to regular school. Obviously you don't eat fried chicken or whatever. She's trying to break away from that. And when she breaks away from that, she has like a whole series of challenging the system, but she's very well read because I know people in our community, like even Dina and I, our daughters they know feminist theory, they know bell hooks, they know all these big ideas, and my 16-year-old character does as well. And I have seen some reviews where people are saying, oh, this is made up. Oh, this is, a niche book. This is not going to appeal to the girls, and this is not black people saying this. So it did not do well commercially because they think I made up a Hotep community. You know what I mean by Hotep, right? And I use the word Hotep, right? And so I put all of that in that book. I laid it all out in there, but it's framed within the context of the U.S. Constitution. She remixes the Constitution to fit her own coming-of-age journey. So I'm like, I'm going to take this L with this book, but I love it, and it's out there for anyone who needs it. But it ends up winning the Coretta Scott King Book Award, which is the biggest award. It's the biggest award for black books. So American Library Association gives out awards, and the Coretta Scott King Award has been around since 1970. People like Sidney Poitier has won, and it was started by Dr. Coretta Scott King. So it's named for her, and it actually won. My other books had gotten honors. So I know black people knew what I was talking about. They knew what time it was. And I know that this is one book that I was not going to write for the white gaze. And I wrote it when I did. The people who needed or understood the concepts recognized it and awarded it.
That's just important, at the end of the day. I don't know if you've seen that Monique interview with Shannon Sharp, but she talks about but she talks about how winning or just being nominated for, I think it was a Soul Train Award, was more exciting for her than winning the Oscar. And I think that that's the kind of mindset that our community needs to just hold on to as we try to navigate these more, selective or white spaces that at the end of the day, our voices are the ones that matter, and our relating to one another is what matters the most. Yeah,
I think when you are going out there and making art and you want the accolades, you want to be recognized because it does affect your bag, right? You do ability to keep making art, and that's very important. At the same time, it's important to contextualize the validation, and when it comes, I know I know there was a recent black woman who got an Academy Award for supporting actress.
Yeah, Davine Joy.
Yeah. I did say this is not my opinion because I didn't see the movie, but somebody was like, "Come on, y'all, she a mammy." I'm sorry, that's in the movie. Yeah. That was her role, and that was that person's opinion. But the point is, it's here are the things that they will give awards to. Here are the stereotypes. Yeah. This also applies to children's books, believe it or not, where it may not be, there's violence. There's the sassy black girl, who will get an award. A book, The Hate You Give is my colleague. We have the same imprint at the same time, it is Black children dealing with police brutality. A Black child who is highly intelligent and just calling out her teacher and dealing with intra-community issues may not do as well as a Black child constantly, a Black girl constantly having to deal with race. She is dealing with stuff that we know that happens in our community that has nothing to do with others, and others may not find that appealing or a gripping story.
Yeah, but it makes your readers feel visible and like they matter, even outside of the confines of like whiteness. So it's important, and it's a tradition that we have to carry on as like writers and artivists and just like creatives in general in the community. So I'm supposed to be taking questions from the audience. Like I said, this is a great opportunity to. Yeah.
Okay, hello. I've actually read one of your books called Pride for School. It was really, really good. Great book. I do have a question about the book. Like, what made you want to remake the actual version?
Thank you. So Pride is my second book. Because this had some violence in it, I demanded that I write a love story. I was like, I'm writing a love story, and I threw out some ideas, and they didn't think just a plain love story with Black kids was marketable enough. And that's how the remix came in. In publishing, it's a bottom line. You do have to sell books. It's a business. And they needed a hook. A hook is something that gets everybody interested. And they already have an idea of what the story will be like, so they're interested in how I'm going to flip Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice, white women love it, Black people love it. You know, it's a classic. It's read in schools. So it's a hook, a Pride and Prejudice remix, and they were able to sell it. And now they have romances with Black characters, but that idea came out in 2016, and there weren't a lot of books at all featuring Black teenagers falling in love. So the Pride and Prejudice remix was just a hook, you know, to get people interested in this story, because we know the basic story, but in what ways will I remix it? And that book, some people dragged that book because they thought I tainted the classic. Wall Street Journal had like a very terrible review. It wasn't about the book, it was about the kids who are gonna be into those kids will like this book. But she's a girl from Bushwick. She's not gonna speak the Queen's English. I can write. I have other books where my characters speak differently, but they did attack African American vernacular. They did attack her community. And I am juxtaposing a girl in Bushwick versus a novel written in 1813 set in London. So I did not love remixing it because I don't even want the Jane Austen purists to come for it, but they came for it. Other people loved it. It is what it is, and those are the risks that you take as an author.
Yeah, which is crazy because they remix Pride and Prejudice all the time. There's like so many different versions of it. I remember watching a web series on YouTube.
Yeah, but
years
this
ago.
is, she's like, it's not too many Black versions in book form.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the dirty word, Black. They don't like that. So.
Yeah. And it's attacking gentrification as well. So the first line is, it's the truth universally acknowledged that when white people move into the hood, instead of the other original one. So I go in for the first lines, and people love it, people don't like it. It's out there.
Yeah, and that's all that matters.
And it's going to be a movie.
Yeah.
A series. It's still in the works. It was going to be HBO. That's all that came out. But now it's another platform, and they're in the works of finding a writer. They have the producer. They're finding a writer and director and all of those people.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
I don't know. Like Hollywood is iffy. So I am. Get in line. Get in line.
All right. Any more questions?
Oh, there's plenty more over here.
Oh, good. Fabulous.
Oh, okay.
Okay, quickly, how do you overcome or work with negative critique of your writing?
How do I overcome negative critique of my writing? I don't pay attention to it because I got paid to write the book. The person critiquing it doesn't get paid to critique it. I respect their point of view. At the same time, I do not like, I don't like fandoms. Like some people write to have a fandom to get off that. I want critical readers. So I love critiques. I love young people critiquing. If I'm like, I can't get into it. Some people, I can't get into it. She's too smart or whatever. You know, as long as I know that you have an opinion, it does not matter. That you gave it a shot. You may not finish it. You may finish it. You love it. That is my job as a writer, to put it out there so that other people can, you know, connect with the character. The people who need to connect with the characters, connect with the characters. People who connect with the writing, connect with the writing. There are pretty wonderful books out there, and there are bad books as well. And that is the thing about art. You have options. And that's why book banning is so terrible, because they're taking away those options from you.
Okay, so when you said that the book you wrote, Pride, it's going to be turned into a show, you said? So I know that a lot of times in media, particularly with Black authors or like Black characters in books, when they go into like mainstream media, they like water down the characters or their stories, or they might not cast some of the characters correctly or appropriately, so they'll be more marketable to like wider audiences. So I just wanted to ask you, like, how much like creative control do you have, and at what point would you like say, okay, no, this isn't gonna work, if they start like doing too much with the story?
You know, that's why when I mentioned it before, I was like, in Hollywood, it's a whole different world. It is a whole different world because the bag is bigger, and it is so easy to get lost in there. And sometimes I don't want anything to do with it. So I can't advocate for myself. I have to have the right agent advocating for me. And right now, the fight is to get executive producer credit, right? Just to have my name on like the, and other people, there's so many other people who want that credit too. And they have money to invest or what have you. The book writers, the writers who write the book, get a small percentage. And in terms of the creatives, I feel like as if we're at the bottom of the barrel. So I don't think we have a lot of creative control. As far, I don't have Pride here. Pride, the first cover they had was light-skinned Latina, very fair skin with big curly hair. It probably would have sold more copies, but I was like, I don't want her to be lighter than me as the author, because I know all the ways colorism plays out. Let me have the cover is brown, but you can see she has short, kinky hair. I had conversations with my editor about the texture of the hair, even though it's illustrated. That's the kind of person I am. And it's so important to get these right for yourself before you go into any sort of industry. Because I realize there are people getting published who may not have done the work to know all the nuances in which we can be negatively portrayed in the media. So for me, I was just like, if you're gonna do her edges, get her edges right. You know, and there is another Spanish version of Pride, Spain, not like Puerto Rico or anything, like actual Spain in Europe, where they redid the cover, and they chose an artist, like her style, she draws all sorts of people, but the way that she draws the ears looks, there's a word for it, where it looks like a monkey. Like the ears are like really round, right?
Yeah.
So they put a black girl on the cover, and she has these round ears, and she has the door knocker earrings, like the bamboo earrings, and her lips are just really shiny. Like her lips are big, and they just shiny, and she's just like, It looked like she going, on the cover. If I show it to you, you can hear it. You can hear the character going, That's how it looked. Like they drew her with an attitude, and they couldn't change the character. So I was like, no, cover her ears, because all of this is perpetuating certain images, and you have to understand all the nuances that images play into how you see yourself, how others see you. So that's the work that I can control. The movies, it's out of my hands. And if I can suggest something, and I would have to do my research and come in with articles to back it up. And that's what I had to do with covers. So there's so much work you have to do for yourself so you don't get lost. And when you see things happening in Hollywood, it's because there are people who don't understand all those nuances, who don't understand the ways in which images play into how we are portrayed out in the world.
Yeah, I'm glad you pulled out The Hate You Give because that's a great example. 'Cause from what I gather, only in special cases, like you have to be a huge selling author like J.K. Rowling or Neil Gaiman to have that much creative control. Like I know Neil Gaiman, the author of Coraline and The Sandman, he's involved in all of his projects. But like with The Hate You Give, you see on the cover, it's a dark-skinned girl with like kinky curly hair. In the movie, it was very infamously played by Amandla Stenberg, who is very much not dark-skinned. And so it's helpful to kind of elucidate how little creative control like most writers have over the film and TV adaptations.
In that case, I do think someone could have said that, but you would have to know the nuances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I learned in my industry is that you can be a black author, put out a book, doesn't mean that you know feminist theory. You know what I mean? You can, like literally sometimes, some people roll out of bed and publish a book for a lot of money. And people love it, but it doesn't mean that you've read the books. You've read the canon. You understand some of the conversations that are happening in this room. It's like hip hop artists, right? Like you pull them out the hood and they become a star, and then you bring up misogyny and they're like, what's that? You know what I mean? By virtue of being a star, by virtue of getting paid to do what you do, doesn't mean that you are intellectually acute, you know? You still have to do the work. So someone who is getting published later in life, as I am, may get less money than someone who's, you know, fresh out of school, writes a blockbuster that people connects with. Meanwhile, I have done all this intellectual labor to understand the layers of our experiences, whereas somebody just starting out may not have done that level of work. So in our social climate, in our society, people think that the person with the most money is the smartest. That's not necessarily true. Quite the opposite sometimes. So if someone who can say, I don't want that character to play my character because she's too light-skinned, she can wield that power if you know that you've sold that many books. This is a hypothetical, you know, but you would have to know to say that. You'd have to know that you have the power to say that. And if you don't know, you just say, I can't control it. So with everything that, you know how, like, you know better, you do better. I personally would not want any, you know, like, very fair-skinned person playing a character, and I will just, like, you know, put my foot down, be 10 toes down and saying no. And if it comes out that I say I'm going to put on social media, I said no, and people will know that. You know what I mean? So not everybody knows to speak up for things like that because they may not understand how these things work.
Yeah, like there's Kendrick and there's Drake. That's the nice way to think about it.
Exactly. Right.
All right, any more questions?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jada. I just want to say I picked up American Street when I was a sophomore in high school, and I'm a junior now in college. So it was one of the first, it was actually one of the first, Black books I ever really picked up from the library. I never got to finish it because I had to return it. But I just wanted to ask, what was your journey like writing about, Black spirituality and specifically, Haitian voodoo, especially, with the taboo, surrounding it? And, did you receive any negative critiques about it? And what were your inspirations, to write about voodoo in general?
Thank you for that question. Oh my God, the people who started reading, they're in college now, right? That was my compromise. I said I will write the shoot 'em up, bang bang book if I could put some Haitian voodoo in there, and not like Hollywood voodoo, and because there's a plethora of that, but the spirituality. My character calls on her deities to help guide her through this space, and there's a corner in Detroit called American Street and Joy Road. And there's an old homeless man on that corner, and I named him Papa Legba. And Papa Legba is the guardian of the crossroads, like Ilegba or Ilegua in other traditions. And this was my way of adding my own flavor to it to just balance out some of the violence and make it more meaningful for me and for the reader. Now I'm going full on Haitian voodoo, hip hop. And it was just to have this hip hop culture to grow up with it while it was still burgeoning. And when the rest of the country did not have that, does create a divide, a cultural divide. If you were, coming of age in the 80s and 90s, a lot of things I can connect to hip hop artists. I was in Queens. I knew some of the members of Tribe Called Quest. Even the
Jealous.
Huh? The people and some of my older peers were partying with some of the hip hop pioneers. So I grew up with that, and then meeting other people who did not have that experience, you might come off very differently. New Yorkers can be abrasive sometimes. So understanding Black people around the country was something that I had to learn, is to understand, how in American fiction, there are two writers who were I'm writing about the hood, and what? It's a reality. And he's like, don't you think they love that it's a stereotype? We're more than that. I've had those conversations more often than not. And an experience from the South is very different from experience in the North, where you have somebody from the South saying, I'm going to milk this Black pain. And because they haven't had, been able to make a living off their art. Meanwhile, you'll have somebody who will say, no, that is not us. I'm writing my romance. I'm not doing. So all of this happens in my industry where it's no more Black pain. Other people are saying, but it's our experience. So this is a thing that's still happening, and I wish we would create community around having these discussions, because I'm in the literary community, and it didn't start with us, and it's not going to stop with us, because these are the conversations they were having during the Harlem Renaissance, when Zora Neale Hurston was writing vernacular, and then you had Richard Wright, and all of them being like, how dare you, and the conversation did not end. You had Toni Morrison looking down on Terry McMillan, being like, what is this trash? So all of this is still happening. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, and thank you, Ibi, for your time this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Please give her a hand. And
Great questions.
yes, thank you.